Good evening, everyone. This is Ron. It's a little after 6, and we'll go ahead and get started. Go ahead and get started on our session here. And as always, we'll see if we have any questions and/or comments. Uh, on yesterday, and as well as Saturday, I think we just kind of had a discussion, just looking at a few topics. But one of the things we discussed on yesterday, we looked at consciousness a little bit, the spirituality of what we are growing into, what we are aware of, and that to me, I think at this point in time, as we look at our surroundings and all the things that's going on uh, externally, finding that root, something to hold on to internally, knowing who you are and being comfortable in that. And so we got into that a little bit. And any questions at all about that or anything for that matter? Okay. And that's something that I hope we can visit again because for some reason consciousness is seems to be one of those things that's not something you can just readily pin down, not something that you can easily define. So it seems like the more understanding you gain, uh, the more in depth it becomes. So that's something we'll probably visit again at another time. Uh, what I want to talk about tonight is, as I said earlier, we have we mentioned on yesterday the Dogon, the Dogon people, an African tribe, and could not find a definition for the word Dogon, where that came from, uh, and what the word actually means, which I thought was interesting. But that's okay. I think I understand it a little bit from a spiritual perspective. But I know that several people have mentioned it or talked about it in other past lessons. So let's see if we can get a discussion going. Uh, you guys, I don't want to call anybody his name. Just if you feel free to talk and who are the Dogons and why should this be important to us?
Yeah. Well, first of all, Ron and family, I really appreciate, just having, the opportunity of just sharing, some uh, wisdom in terms of just what I was able to, ascertain in reference to reading about the Dogon nation of Mali, which is basically in West Africa. But what was interesting was the fact that they were very, very um, engaged in terms of just looking at the astronomical and agricultural system, based on their studies of the heavens. And I think what was interesting, Ron, is you have in the past have taken us back to beginning when you spoke of Genesis, chapter 1, verses 1 and 2. And I think that
Mm-hmm.
it was just very interesting just to see, how our ancestors were able to be able to first and foremost not only just learn from nature, which was their first teacher, but more importantly, being able to know how to develop, the agricultural system, but at the same time, just being able to, like I said, read the galactic the stars, being able just to be aware of the heavens. And when you mention about consciousness, because I just want to go back to that just for a moment, because I think it all
Yeah.
relates to, our beginning when we talk about the importance of the waters, when we talk about the importance of matter. And so their beginning basically started from a concept where they were able to appreciate Elohim being everything, and everything was Elohim. So in that beginning, there was the concept of what you may have heard or spoke about before in terms of the Nun. And basically, when we talk about the Trinity, and we'll get into that a little bit more in detail in terms of the first original Trinity, but when we look at it from the astrology, it talks about the importance that matter, and water, existed before the beginning began, because it was always there. And so when we begin to look at the agricultural piece in terms of being able to appreciate this particular energy, this particular matter, this particular substance, it was in the continent of Africa, which was the first continent, but what they basically was referred to was the Pangea. And the Pangea was everything that was in matter, that was in substance, that was in that water. And from that potential energy and that matter, there was that conversion where there was and again, I'm speaking of metaphorically and conceptually just from the African theory in terms of how the Dogons and how, this manifested, that particular energy at rest was in motion, but it was basically just at a resting point where out of the waters of Nun came the primordial hill, which was of energy. Now, when energy at rest connected with energy and motion, this was again Ptah. And in the past, I'm sure we'll speak about it also in terms of looking at the Ptah chronologically, but at the same time, again, because of energy at rest connecting with energy with motion, it now, created what we call atomic consciousness. Now, atomic consciousness is when we talk about the creative utterances in terms of the word being spoken. So in terms of a metaphor now, I'm just trying to just give a little foundation because I think this will lead us more into the astronomical and the agricultural process. But from that creative utterances, there was always polarity, there was always duality that existed before the beginning. And so when we talk about the atomic consciousness, this is now the creative word being spoken. So when we talk about John chapter 1, verse 1, in the beginning, the word was with God, the word was God. This was that entity in terms of that the word was being spoken, and now the creative names began to manifest that was already there from the beginning because everything was in the Pangea. And again, from that point, and again, you can stop me anytime, but I'm just trying to lay the foundation again. But I think from there.
Okay. Let me stop you 1 second. Go back and tell me what is the Pangea again?
Okay, the Pangea is the first original. It's the waters that always existed even before the beginning. The Pangea is like when we talk about in verse 2 of Genesis 1, when God holds over the deep, and then it speaks about the waters.
So what are the waters? Okay, so how does that relate to the waters of Nun? What is the Nun?
Okay, the Nun is that initial substance, that initial matter, that initial the waters that was already there for the beginning. So that's what the Nun is. When we talk about the waves, when we look at wavicles, you know what I mean? If we look at waves in the water, this was the symbol. This was the symbol in terms of the Kushite and the Kemetic kingdom and our beginning, where that's where everything manifested when we begin to look at spirituality before science. I mean, spirituality before religion.
Yeah.
Okay? So it was in that in the continent of Africa, right? In the first continent, before things manifested in terms of land, you had that water that was covering everything. The water was the whole substance and the matter.
May I help you?
Oh, please.
Yeah, what when we talk about the waters of noon, right? We're talking about the same waters that were there in Genesis, and the difference is the way it's written, the words that it uses rather, because just as the waters in Genesis covered the deep, the waters of noon are the waters which contain the germ of matter, which means that it contained the energy of the Creator. And from the perspective that George is speaking, it contained the energy of noon, which is the one, or which is Elohim. So when we talk about the waters of noon, we're simply talking about the waters that covered the deep, that had within it the germ or the energy for all of creation.
Okay.
Does that help, George?
So, yes, it does. Yes, it does. And what I was basically trying to do was, put it in perspective that in terms of that foundation. But when we talk about consciousness, Ron, I wanted to, relate it to the fact that when we had some conversation before, when we talked about to know, and that is basically to be assured of, to be certain, to have discernment, to be aware, to pay attention. And I think that we're coming to a consciousness now where we talked about in the past in terms of being asleep. And I think that, because of the teachings, because of what we're receiving, some of us are coming out of that unconsciousness, which it talks about the 4 levels, of attainment consciousness. And so that first level, when we talk about unconsciousness, it exists, within a life system of not being aware. And we speak about it in terms of Elohim, but do we know that we're Elohim? You know what I mean? Is it something that we have to constantly keep, reminding ourselves? No, it comes to a point of knowing. And I think that coming out of this unconsciousness, it talks about simple consciousness, self-consciousness, and cosmic consciousness. But I just want to go back to unconsciousness for a moment, because it talks about that there, it contains information that was once consciousness, but now unconsciousness. So to be able to know is us coming into that knowledge and that wisdom that I think is so important, that we can appreciate, like being in a vegetable stage of not knowing or being stagnant and still going through the same motions, where now we're beginning to come into that awareness that we can move into that next level, which is simple consciousness. I just want to go over these four right quick, if I can, Ron, and then, like I said, any questions?
Yes, sir. The floor is yours, George. Go ahead. Yeah, of course.
So with the simple consciousness, Ron, just for an example,
take your time,
I'm
George.
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, just
Okay. Okay. So when we talk about simple consciousness, for an example, we're moving from unconsciousness to simple consciousness. It talks about being possessed by the upper half of the animal kingdom. When we talk about, the animal kingdom, it's looked at to be, a situation where, they have consciousness because they live according to nature. They live according to the sun in terms of how organic life transpires, and they follow that basically to the core. But in terms of humans and the gift that we have, we can be subjective, in terms of being able to use our mind to say no, but at the same time, no is not a bad thing as long as it's basically done with morals, it's done with values, it's done with truthfulness. And so it comes to a point that we can move from that unconsciousness to a simple consciousness of basically, living according to the commandments or living according to the Ma'atian principles. But that simple consciousness is that I know it's true and I know that I know it's true. So again, it's being able to appreciate, moving to another level, which talked about self-consciousness. And that self-consciousness.
If I can, though, George, I just want to make sure I understand. So the simple consciousness is really our probably most immature state. Would you say? It is the portion that we are aware of ourselves as a physical existence, and it is probably the place where we first began to trust and rely on our mind more than anything. Our mind in connection with our senses, our five senses. So when you mentioned the animalistic part of it, we're coming into that. We're coming to we first see ourselves, I guess, is what I'm asking. It is that point where there is no spiritual connection, I would suppose, but you see yourself as a being that primarily focus on existing, or what's the word? Primarily focus on survival of self, and is that safe to say?
Yes, Ron. That's safe to say, because what you were talking about was the senses earlier. So in our five senses, we talked about perception or percepts. And so when we begin to utilize our senses, in that way that we know that it's true, in terms of what we know to be true based on our intuition, which is basically, I think, the eighth sense that that was spoken of, in the past. But I think, again, here we come to a point of thinking, or we come to a point of thought. And now our thought is, again, you create because you are the creator. But based on your senses, we now can move into looking at what they call images. And I think that's where, again, we begin to tie, when we are talking a little bit about yesterday in terms of symbols, we begin to look at images, but our senses still connect where we go from unconsciousness to simple consciousness, and now we can begin to, move in that matter which we know, is true based on our intuition. I don't know if that resonates with what you.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. But again, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ron.
No, someone else I thought was trying to talk. Is there anyone else have a question?
No, I wanted to relate something to what the types of consciousness. All the consciousness that we are talking about is actually spoken of and mentioned, in, not in detail, but shrouded in mysteries, are the consciousness of Adam, as well as the consciousness of Abraham. If you remember, Adam was put to sleep, which means that he was in a state of unconsciousness, a state of unawareness as to what was around him and the journey that he was about to take. Abraham also was put in a state of sleep, which is also a state of unconsciousness, as he was being made aware of the principles that humanity was to be guided by, and how those adhering to the journey that he was about to take and understanding that the journey was inclusive of what is called what is written rather in the story called his sons or his offspring, which in essence is speaking to the type of consciousness that he was going to develop based upon his desires. Now, to sum that up and link it to what I think I know George is talking about, because the consciousness that he's talking about is based upon the Ma'at principle. And that's simply saying that the consciousness is based upon the true nature, the concept of what world order is supposed to look like. If you don't get beyond the simple consciousness, then you never get to a place where you are able to understand or to even embrace the true nature of world order. And the world order simply speaks about dealing with truth, reality, justice, etc. Forgiveness, all those principles that these principles are set or to be set by the world order is set by these principles. And with simple consciousness, all you know is that you are here to survive. And that speaks to the animalistic attitude that we have spoken of. And when you get to the consciousness level where an awareness, where you realize there is more to life, more to man than simply survival on this earth, it is at that point that you begin to recognize that the five senses are there for your protection. And those senses protect us until we get to the place where we are at what we call the eighth sense is a consciousness of imagery. And that consciousness of imagery is when we begin to see that the true protection for us as individuals is definitely those five senses, but the true protection to bring about world order is found in the eighth sense, which is a different type of consciousness, and that is the consciousness of imagery. And the imagery of that consciousness cannot be realized if we don't embrace the image that we were created in. And that image that we were created in is not a picture drawn on a wall or painted on a canvas. It is the imagery is the essence of the one who created us, which means that the consciousness that we are talking about at this point is the image of our Creator, which means that the image of our Creator is our expressing the principles of the world order. We can know what they are. We can know its truth. We can know its forgiveness. We can know its loving kindness. But until we embrace it, we are not capable of functioning according to the principle of imagery. That imagery being functioning according to Elohim, the image of Elohim that we are created in for the purposes of bringing creation into this earth, so as above, so is below. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you said a lot. Yeah.
But I see what George what he's looking at is the and then tell me if I'm right, George. What he's looking at is the pure thought of the Eastern mind, the African mind. It's the pure thought of the journey that the African has taken from the time of creation up to the point where we are now, and realizing that growth factor or that journey from creation to now has been wrought with not only changes but also hardships. And those hardships came about because the creativity that was supposed to be spread throughout the earth was not. And when we failed to do that, then there was a reversion. We reverted to an animalistic nature because of the submission, because of our submissive ways to those who had no clue as to what spirituality is. And I hope I'm not rambling. And I hope that I'm making sense. And I hope that you're not lost to the point where you cannot form a question.
Well, Pastor, I appreciate what you shared, because basically that's what was in my spirit is to try to look at the foundation in terms of not only who we are, but being able to not only receive from nature, but being able to put those teachings in a way of how our ancestors were able to begin to develop their pathway and their journey. And so when you spoke about the Maatian principles, it basically just talked about what we've been sharing for many sessions, is to talk about truth. You know what I mean? To talk about justice, talk about reciprocity, to talk about the importance of balance, polarity, righteousness, morality, and order and arrangement. And I think that when we begin to look at how the Dogons were able to, look at the galactic family, in terms of how it was developed, how it happened, it's basically similar to, as you say, so above, so below. So I think that there's some cosmic, consciousness. There's some the cosmic consciousness is one that, I'm just saying again for myself, I'm beginning to see, how all, like we said, all things work together for the good, where we're able to see it from that energy. And so, Ron, I was kind of getting to that self-consciousness, and I think that that's what, I wanted to bring up next in terms of, where we are or where I am, that it says a self-conscious human being is not only conscious of the trees, the rocks, the water, his or her body, but he or she is aware that she is conscious. You know what I mean? We're beginning to, see what creation gives us each and every day when we wake up and receive from the sun, when we receive from the stars, when we receive from the moon. I think that there's that entity that the Dogons were able to appreciate in reference to the astrology, and then at the same time dealing with the agricultural system. But basically, says the human being sees himself or herself, distinct entity apart from all the rest of the universe, but still an important part of the universe. So we say we are the universe and the universe is me. So again, how do we, receive in that way that, we're able to receive the energy from the ground? You know what I mean? And I know there's other aspects that people know. I think we're just trying to come into it where we can appreciate that final consciousness, Ron, which is, again, the cosmic consciousness. And I think that that's where, when we begin to talk about the Dogons, and, I know I shared it briefly, with Pastor, in terms of just being able to appreciate, how they were able to be, when we talk about being referred to mathematicians, in terms of the feminine energy. When it comes to being able to read the stars or being able to know when the menstrual cycle in terms of the woman, and how she was able to count and how it's so related to the cosmos. But I think that it all kind of reverts to me back to the book of Genesis. And I wanted to go back to that because I think scripturally, that's part of our desire to be, spiritually aware, to be spiritually in tune. And, I see how, in my opinion, that relates to Genesis. So I just wanted to share those thoughts, Ron.
Well, I appreciate the parallels to Genesis. That really helps me to see this. So I appreciate that from you and Pastor. Let me ask you something, because the consciousness part of it fascinates me. We think of when you talk about the three different consciousness, we tend to think that unconsciousness is not an active state or not a productive state. I'm just wondering if that the initial beginning, that unconsciousness, because it's an internal thing, and is that somebody? Yeah, please.
That the unconscious is a state of being unaware of what's around you. For example, we live in a state of unconsciousness the whole time that we were embracing religion as it was being taught to us. What does that mean? It means that the whole time we were doing that, there was a type of awareness, a consciousness that we were unaware of at that moment. So what happened? When we became aware that that was more, we started a journey to find out what was that going to look like. And in doing so, we were no longer unconscious or unaware of what else was available. And as we continued the journey, we continued to find out that every time we are aware of something else, means we are unconscious to the next thing or unaware of the next thing. So that's how I see the consciousness functioning. As far as the Dogon are concerned, I see the Dogon as being here at this moment in time for a precise cause, and that cause is to remind us that there are people, there are humans in this earth who have the consciousness that every one of us were born with. They are conscious of it. We are unconscious. We are unaware of it. However, we're doing everything we can to awaken from this Abrahamic consciousness so we can become aware of it. We are awakened already from the Adamic consciousness, from Adam. And the reason I say that is because when we awaken from the unconsciousness or unawareness of what the Adam is, that is when we realize that we are Elohim. Now we are awake to that. Now the next thing for us to be awakened to is to understand why was it necessary to be awakened from the sleep or the unconsciousness that Adam was placed in. And if we think about it, we were awakened from it so that we could see what we were going to face when we, as humans, began this journey of harmony in the earth. And what did we face? We can see that the moment that the Creator brought into existence this woman for the companion of Adam. What happened? Adam was told, the entity was told to name the animals, which means that we are facing a consciousness that is low, that is less than the consciousness that we are supposed to be expressive of in this earth. And that consciousness that we are supposed to be expressive of is that of our Creator. However, when Adam was shown the consciousness of the animals, what he was shown was what we were up against in terms of the brutality, the evilness of mankind, or those type of men who were unaware of their spiritual essence. And then when we were awakened according to the Abraham and Abraham's journey, we were made aware that now that you understand that you are Elohim, you have a covenant relationship with your Creator, and it was not entered into by you. It was given to you by your Creator, which means that you are one with your Creator. And if you have been made aware that you were that you are Elohim during the time frame when you had an animalistic thought process, you would have been destructive to the whole world. So we are now at that state of awareness where we are beginning to see or beginning to desire to see what the Dogon experienced. The Dogon talked about the circulation of the blood in the body. They understood that the blood in the body circulated through the heart and to the other organs. But they also understood that what they call the clear blood that circulated through the veins. And that clear blood is called the word in their language. So it's talking about the spirit, the word in their language, meaning that there is a spiritual essence that flows through every organ of the body, as does the blood itself. Any questions or comments about that?
No questions from me. I was clear.
So okay. Are there any questions or comments from anyone else? Okay.
So you say the Adam experience. You say we are fully awakened from.
What I'm saying is that we are at this point. We are fully awakened from the Adam experience. That's what I'm saying. And what I'm saying also is that we are awakened also from the Abraham experience. And if we were not awakened from the Adam experience, we could not embrace that we are Elohim. Once you embrace that you are Elohim, then you began the Abraham experience of awakening. What does that mean? The Abraham experience of awakening we're speaking to the concept of fathering those who do not understand who they are and giving them a sense of belonging, giving them a sense of origin. And that sense of origin comes when that covenant relationship is entered into with Elohim. And that covenant relationship has been misunderstood by us. It is not a relationship that's written on some sheepskin. The relationship of a covenant is when you come to the realization that you are no different than the one that you are in covenant with. And when you hurt, the one you're in covenant with hurt. When you process, it processes as well, which is another way of saying that we are one with our Creator. And I do believe that in becoming aware of that, then what comes now is for us to be sensitive enough to what our desires are so that we can begin to have the same expressive experiences that the Dogon has. The Dogon are a tribe or a group of people who live near Mali, which is a country in Africa. And I believe that they have been left alone for the express purpose of showing us what it looks like, what the experiences are when we are truly at that place where we have walked out of the shell of being animalistic and entered into the skin of being human, meaning that we are able now to appreciate the celestial bodies and understand their function in this earth, understand how they affect not just us as humans, but how they affect the earth as a whole. We have been exposed to the Dogon for the reason of understanding that our energy is a continuous flow from what we call the universe, and what the Dogon actually simplifies as saying they are celestial bodies. And In essence, it is the totality of the universe that we receive our energy from. But the Dogon, did someone say something? But the Dogon simplified it for us and said that our primary energy source is the Sirius star system, and that's where we receive the energy from. During the period of the Lions Gate, or the opening of the Lions Gate, that is in August, during the period of Leo, when the moon grows from a quarter moon into a full moon. In between that time period, for it to reach a full moon, that is the period when there is the largest amount of energy being infused into the earth from the Sirius star system. That is a proven scientific fact. The Dogon knew this long before there was anyone on earth who was recording this or even understood it. They are a group of people who were left alone purposely, so that the Creator could awaken this could awaken their purpose at the opportune time, and that opportune time is now. And the reason I say that is because they are an example, a model of who we are, meaning we have influence in the universe, and the universe influences us. The only way that they could have possibly known about any star system, especially the Sirius B, because you can't see it with your naked eye. The only way they could have known about that is they knew how to be one with the universe, meaning they knew that they were in covenant with the energies of the universe. They knew that the one who created them, they were one with them. Therefore, they could not only see and observe everything that entity created, but they were it and it was them, and they knew how to benefit from it for the benefit of humanity. Does that make sense? Or is that simple enough? Or if not, please ask a question, or I'll try to simplify it even more. Because I can't truly present what I'm seeing unless there are some questions that come from it.
I can want to add a little bit to it, as it also relates to what George is talking about with the senses, as well as the different with the consciousness. With the religion, how you mentioned about us operating in an unconscious, environment. What was also happening in that situation is there's another, how should I say this? We were operating in an unconsciousness that was given from without. And the religion that you were talking about, that religion then came from, was more so, but not more so, it was a European mind set. Difference that you explained between consciousness and consciousness is being aware of something, and sometimes we talk about earth consciousness, but there's also a consciousness, other type of consciousness that is, in a sense, and I'm doing air quotes, outward worldly, which just mean aware of things that go beyond the five senses. What Europeans did, or the European mindset, was that they were distrusting of anything that they thought was actually unconscious, which would also mean 6th, 7th, 8th sense, etc., because they could not understand it from an intellectual standpoint. So their mindset or their approach was, if I can understand this from an intellectual standpoint, it is trustworthy. If there's anything that I cannot understand from an intellectual standpoint, then I need to automatically disregard it, and is not trustworthy at all. If anything, is fraudulent and misleading. So that's why things are typically associated with being mistrustful, like nighttime,
darkness and things like that. It has more so, from a European standpoint, a negative connotation. Black magic, anything that cannot be readily understood from the intellect, is associated with black. It also is a reason for racism, in a sense, on a very deep level, because typically indigenous and black people are conscious, or more so conscious, or more so open to Elohim being God, spirituality, sixth, seventh, eighth sense, etc., is more natural, is a natural draw to it, etc. Um, but that's the relationship between the five senses and not trusting those higher senses that I just talked about. It is how the Dogons were able to map out the universe. It was how the Dogons were able to understand the functioning of the body, etc. They were not looking through the five senses. They trusted and understood all of these higher senses and what they were able to see, in another word, with their third eye. And so that which was once, um, I guess, unconscious, they explored and began to understand, or understood it more and more and more, to the point where it was conscious. Therefore, those stars that the Europeans needed a telescope to understand and view was already known, many years ago, way before a telescope was even discovered, and modern science, which is built upon intellect, could even find out and see. Hopefully, that adds to what you said and helps. Helps.
Yeah, and also Sheldon, in terms of what you were saying, in terms of being able to see, Sirius or B star, it wasn't until 71 that NASA was able to see Sirius B star for the first time. But as you mentioned, it was something that we were already able to connect to, and I think that that's what I wanted to refer to when I was speaking about the four grades of consciousness, and it talked about that self higher level of thinking, and that's where, again, in their studies and in their development, Pastor talked about the word. And with the Dogons, they basically, had used a epileptic picture that I was looking at, but it talked about the front word, the side words, the back word, and the inside word, which was that clear word that Pastor, was speaking about in terms of the Son of Light. They call it Sodai, but again, it just talks about, again, that whole circling in terms of us just being connected to the Sirius B star and how they were able to, deal with agriculture and et cetera. So I just wanted to share that thought. Ron.
Also, go ahead.
Nothing, Pastor. I was just going to see if any questions, because a lot's been said, and is everybody following? If not, just say I don't understand, or could you go over that part again, or just make sure everybody's still with us, because a lot's being said here. Everybody okay?
I was going to make an effort to narrow it down so we can see it in relationship to where we are, where we were, and where we are, rather. When we are talking about consciousness, the consciousness of and the awakening of Adam and Abraham, and in relationship to the Dogon, what we are seeing here is a picture of what it looks like to live from the eighth sense. The difference between the eighth sense and the seven senses, as I see it, is that the seven senses protect you individually. The eighth sense protects humanity, period. The reason I say the eighth sense does that is because the eighth sense understands the world order, understands what truth is, what justice is, and understands that retribution is not something to seek. And the Dogon are an African tribe who understands that. I see the Dogon no differently than we would talk about spiritual people who lived before us, who are now our ancestors. What am I saying? We talk about the spiritual essence of Jesus. We talk about the spiritual essence of Moses. We talk about how they saw things before they happened. We talk about how they were one with our Creator. And we also talk about how they were able to speak to people and get them to see the essence of our Creator, even though there were some who still resisted. Well, when I think about the Dogon, I see them the same way. I see them as being an example of who we are supposed to be as we travel this journey. Who are we supposed to be? And I do believe that we are closer to that than ever before. Again, Adam is no longer asleep in us. Abraham is no longer asleep in us. So what I'm saying in essence is that we stop and we take notice of the celestial bodies and their movement when they move differently than we have been taught they should be, or differently than we expect them to. We notice the number of full moons, of supermoons that we had in the space of 2 months. We noticed how the eclipses took place and the way they did it and what they meant. We noticed the alignment of the planets and that led up to the opening of the Lion's Gate. These things we have paid attention to. Well, when we look at the Dogon, these are the things that they have known for centuries. And if they had not known it for centuries, no one in the earth would have been able to see them even with a telescope, because they wouldn't have known to make one. The energy of what the Dogon knew, the energy of what they know, the essence of who they are, is the same energy that guides us along this journey of spirituality. Even though there is very little spoken of them in regards to their spiritual beliefs, there's a ton of information about them in reference to their understanding of the cosmic bodies, as well as how they affect the earth. Well, that to the Caucasian is science. That to the African is spirituality. The movement of celestial bodies is spirituality. Why? Because the effect that they have on us on this earth is unseen. Yet, we are taught that it is science, and science is something that you observe from afar. Science is something that's separated from you. Spirituality is who you are, which means that those planets are a physical manifestation of our energies. They are a physical manifestation of what it takes for us to bring into this earth realm a creative force that will result in as above, so is below. The Dogon are an example of who we are to be in order for us to bring that into this reality, which means that they are the pattern that we are guided by for the purpose of bringing balance to the earth itself. So when we speak of the Dogon, we are speaking of a group of African people who have been in this earth from the beginning, and who have recently, in terms of the amount of time this earth has been in existence, and who have recently been quote unquote discovered by some scientists or astrologers or astronomers who think they know everything. And because of them and their disputing the Dogon, it brought information to us about them. And the reason we are now discussing this information is because we are realizing that we are them and they are us. And the only way that we are going to be able to bring the balance that we seek, the harmony that we know is present, into a manifested state is for us to embrace the energy and to accept the reality of those things that we don't see, those things that we don't understand. Embrace it because it resonates. You feel it. You feel it deep in your soul. And when we are able to do that, it is then that everyone becomes a Dogon. Us becomes the same. All of us are the Dogon because of the essence of who they are. Now, keep in mind, they are not the only group of people on this earth who were capable of seeing what they saw, recording what they saw, and passing it through stories from the oral traditions. They were not the first, but they are the ones who were hidden in order for them to remain in the state that they were created from the beginning. Because everyone else has either been destroyed or what they have taught us has been distorted. The reason that the idea of European scientists and European philosophers and European politicians, the reason that they are who they are and the way that they present themselves is for them to be superior in everything. What am I saying? It was the Greeks who said that oral tradition was unreliable. Those stories were unreliable. Well, the Dogon proved that they are not unreliable. The reason they say it's unreliable is because they knew nothing about it. And to this day, that same thought pattern exists in our midst. So right now, ladies and gentlemen, we are the Dogon. And we are the essence of the Dogon. They have preserved everything we need in order for us to walk not only in their footsteps, but stand on their shoulders so that we can see what they have seen, so that we can experience what they have experienced, so that we are able to be who we were created to be and bring this earth to a place of balance, to bring this earth to a place of harmony so that it can avoid being destroyed, so that it can be reconstituted in the way that it should be. No longer am I, no longer shall we be looking for the time when this harmony is going to take place. No longer are we to look for the manifested period. We are the manifestation of the harmony in this earth. And we can truly say that because of the essence of who the Dogon are, and because those who sought to minimize, or those who sought to minimize what they knew, or those who sought to destroy them or to make them seem as though they are ignorant pagans, they are the ones who brought this truth to the light without even intending to. There are times when the thing gets destroyed or distort, that is the thing that you shine more light on. And this has taken place with the Dogon. Right now, we are who we are because of the discussions we've had, because of the truth that we have embraced, and because of the desires that we have to live a life of love and kindness, mercy, forgiveness, and all the other attributes that are expressed not only by Jesus, not only by those ancient men and women who have stood for truth and justice, but also by the Dogon themselves. If you read their culture, you will see that they have no animosity towards anyone. They believe what they believe, they embrace what they believe, they live what they believe. And the earth is to become the essence of the Dogon, which is no different than the essence of Elohim. I hope I made it. I hope I'm able to simplify it so that we can understand what we're talking about, because I'm very much aware that there are people on this phone who have never heard of the Dogon. I'm very much aware that there are people on this phone who have never heard about the waters of Nun, who have never heard about Atum, who have never heard about Nuganir, or have never heard those words, yet have been studying them and didn't even know that that's what they were studying. So the words are different, but the realities, the truth are the same. Any questions or comments? Let me ask this question. Is this clearer than what we have been, or is it, let me ask that first. Is it clearer than what we were?
First of all,
Don't be silent. I need some.
Yeah.
And I need responses from people other than the ones who we normally respond. Are we clear? Is this clearer, rather?
So have you heard of sine and cosine?
The reason I'm saying this, I'm raising this, is because we are not at a crossroads where we can make a decision which way we are going. No. We are on a straight and narrow pathway, and we are singly focused. And our focus is on what? The harmony in this earth, without regard to any group of people being superior to anybody. So what I'm saying to you in essence is this. You got to hear this, embrace this, even if you can't reproduce it in thought or in words, it doesn't matter. If it resonates with you, that means you got it. And it is important because of what I just said. There is no longer a period of looking for it to be manifested. It is manifested now. You are who you are going to be. And the only way that you cannot be who you are supposed to be is because you look at yourself as, well, I've always been this way. Or this is what I always believe. Well, you will always be where you are until you decide that there is more and that you are better than what you were in the past, and that the journey that you are traveling is not one just to be nosy. It's one to grow from. It's not one just to be able to speak words to people that they have never heard before. It's for you to be that person who brings the energy to them so they would seek to understand who you are, how you get to be where you are, and what they feel when they are in your presence. Understand the reason they look to you for direction and don't even realize that they're looking to you for direction. This is where we are. This is who we are. And this is, most of all, what we are. Because when I say who we are, I'm not talking about men and women. When I say what we are, I'm talking about Elohim. I'm talking about in inextricable, and we are masculine, and that we cannot be separated from the energies that we are. And we are pregnant when we are male, when we are feminine energy, or seed when we are male energy, when it's necessary. We must see ourselves beyond the human structure that we live in and see ourselves as the spiritual essence of this entire universe and we simply live in this structure, but we are the universe who lives in it. Questions, comments? If none, thank you.
Thank you. I think that has been clear. There's another layer I want. Do you think that's enough for the night? Because there's something I want to ask you that's going to add more to this.
I would rather you raise that question in regards to answers from the other people, because where I am right now, I can't honestly answer that because I know what I'm experiencing, and you know how I am when I'm experiencing what I'm experiencing. So I could not give you an honest answer to that at this moment. So, do you guys you want Ron to raise it or not, or do you think that we are at a place where you need to mull over what's been?
Raise the question.
Okay. Pastor and George and Sheldon, are you guys familiar with the term nomos, Nommo?
Yes.
Okay. Now it speaks of the nomos are the spirit of the spirituality of the ancestors, and that is directly tied to the waters that we've been talking about. Speak to that portion of it, and anything else that you may see in that. But the ancestors comes up a lot when you talk about the Dogon. So let's tie that in, please.
Too far. So if you notice the pattern, it's always 30 degrees, then 45 degrees, and 60 degrees from the line.
Hello, is someone trying to say something?
45 degrees out, 60 degrees from the line.
Would you what am I trying to say? Mute your phone, please. Okay, Ron.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that was my question, guys. I want to. I appreciate what has been said, and I'm getting this. I want to just go a little deeper, a little further, I guess. Looking at this term, I'm pronouncing it nomos, and it's probably not correct, but it's Nommo, and it talks about the ancestral spirits. Is what that word describes, and it comes from the waters. So I'm. Do you guys have you looked at that portion of it?
I have. The
Okay.
nomos, when it speaks about the nomo, it's talking about, as you said, the ancestors. And the simpler way to explain the nomos is this. If it's speaking about the ancestors, it's simply saying that the ancestors died and the ancestors are resurrected, acting as a sacrifice for us in order to purify and cleanse the earth. So what is actually saying is that the exit from the bodies of our ancestors are for the purpose of being resurrected, and the resurrection is in us, and that resurrection is for the purpose of cleansing the earth, and the way that they are resurrected in us is when we embrace them, and that exiting the body and being embraced by us causes them to become or recognize them or raises them to a place within us of being a sacrifice for the purpose of cleansing the earth and restoring the earth to where it was supposed to be in the beginning.
So that resurrection is all a part of the consciousness as well.
Yes, sir. And that also that is where the understanding of the resurrection of Jesus is not came from. Because if you look at the scripture clearly,
You're fading out, Pastor.
Huh?
You're fading out.
The resurrection of Jesus is not not just speaking to the man of resurrection. It's talking about the resurrection of truth. And when it talks about the nomos being resurrected, our ancestors being resurrected for the cleansing of the earth, that means that they're being resurrected. The true nature of our essence is being resurrected for the purification of the earth. And if we look at that the way that we have been speaking in the last few minutes, then what we began to see is that we are the resurrected ancestors, or at the very least, the representative of the resurrection of truth. Why? Because that is what we are seeking, truth and truth alone. And the true essence of the earth is birthed through the journey that we are taking. And when the earth's true essence is manifested in us, it is manifested in the earth. And that is when we began to see a massive purging taking place. And that purging is not the destruction of anything. That purging is the transformation of everything. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I see that.
And the reason it speaks so much about the waters is because that's what we are. We are more water than anything else. When there's turbulence in the water, there's turbulence in you. When the waters are calm and at peace, when you can see serenity in the waters, there's serenity, there's peace in you. Even by the side, the banks of the rivers, when the rivers are calm, you are calm. The focus is there because we are water. The body is water. And that calmness of that, when our souls are in a state of calmness, our bodies are in a state of peace. That turbulence is not there. When Kathy talks about sitting with something, before that, there's turbulence. But when you sit with it, there's a peace. And that peace comes because the turbulence of the waters that you are is no longer turbulent. And now you can not only think clearly, you can hear clearly, and you can function clearly. And functioning clearly means that you can function in the manner that you were created to be. You can function in the manner that you're being led to function in. Functionality is what this is all about. Questions or comments? Does that help you, Ron?
Yes, sir, it does. I want to add one thing. We talk about Elohim. Of course, they don't call God Elohim, but I also wanted to add that they know as well that God is a dual gender. It's not a he, it's not a she, it's both. But yes, that helps. Thank you.
Pastor Jay, I have a question. So when we embrace what you just told us, and what you said was very powerful and profound. So once we embrace what you told us, what has been put out there in the macro, we ought to remain in a receptive mode and just be, like we always say, just be. And things, I'm gonna leave it right there. So is that what you're telling me? We have to become intimate, which means we're going to embrace what you said will resonate and just be receptive.
Yes, you don't have to become intimate. Because when something resonates with you, you're already intimate.
The way you said earlier when you were on a roll, so to speak, it's like when my parents or our parents would tell us, know who you are, act like you know who you are. I'll just leave it at that. Know who you are and just walk in it. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yes, I say, yeah, they say, know you're Richard. Remember that. Don't you forget who you are. And I'm saying, know that you are the same essence of the Creator is the Dogon. Know that and walk in it.
and don't shape what we see or what will come or what will be. Just be.
That's it. Just be. See what you see, and be who you be, and that's it. Don't
Because I feel everything that you said tonight. It really, I mean, it's like it's going to every cell in my body, and it's very empowering. So I just want to let you know, I didn't say anything earlier because I was still trying to process it, but I'm embracing what you said. I'm done.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Well, Pat, I just wanted to make, this statement in reference to what you spoke about, but with the Dogons, when it talks about, the characteristics of cosmic consciousness and looking at it spiritually, talked about a sense of external existence, a loss, a fear of death, about moral exaltation, and again, intellectual illumination, sudden, instant, increased mental awareness, and prophetic stimulations of the personal aura and spiritual transmutation. And I think that all what you said, really relates to, the characteristics, of this consciousness. And I think that's, what you're, saying to know and to be, and just be it.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I just want to share those thoughts. I'm done.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir. Ron?
Okay, thank you. This is I agree with Evelyn. This has been very, very powerful this evening, and I appreciate the discussion. I really hope everybody's gained some understanding in this. The thing that I originally saw, George, instead of mentioning this, got me interested. He and Pastor were bringing it up from time to time in our lessons. And the other day we were talking in the parking lot. George kind of really piqued my interest and got me to look at some stuff. And I thought, God, we gotta talk about this. And the one thing that I see is I hope we understand that part of that consciousness, really, really, really understand who we are from the perspective of Africans and spiritual. All this stuff has been hidden. All the history of Africa and anything about us that has been positive has been hidden. And now all the stuff that is hidden is been, and we're seeing that and understanding it. So I agree, and hopefully this is making sense to everybody. But once again, are there any questions or comments? Because a lot's been said this evening, and maybe be a good time to stop and kind of mull it over. But
Ron, I have one more comment before we get off. I think me too. I'm going to do it. I think we should do our research. We always try to find our family tree, our family history. Well, the Dogons are our history. They're our ancestors. We are the Dogons. I think after we get off the phone, those who are really interested, seek and you shall find. Look at your family history. I think we'll get a clear understanding also about the Dogons and how they function and whatever. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
With that,
I'm sorry.
Sorry, go ahead, Ron.
I'm sorry.
Spell it, Dogon. It spells just like it sounds. So when you Google it, all you have to do is Google the Dogon. I'm done.
And there are lots of information out there. A lot of it is fragmented, though. A lot of it is, this, that, and so it's just digging.
Also, in terms of just information, they were saying that Benjamin Banner, who I guess did the architecture for Washington D.C., he was actually he's Dogon. He's a Dogon. I mean, we all are, but I know that in his DNA, it mentioned that. Just a point of information.
Who is he again, George?
Benjamin Banner, the one who did the architecture for DC.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, you see what he was able to do, right? When he laid out DC,
Yeah.
he did it according to what? Universe.
Mm-hmm. Wow. All right. Well, again, if there are no further comments or questions, we'll kind of mull this over and see where this leads us next week, okay? But I appreciate everyone who spoke and the energy that was put out there, the questions, and feel enlightened. I appreciate this. Well, have a great week, and look forward to hearing and seeing you Saturday morning.
Thank you. Y'all have a good.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye.